Hi, I'm Anna Miller, the Associate Pastor here at First United Methodist Church in Albany. And today I want to ask us, what is the size of our faith? Does the size of our faith matter? And if it does, how big does our faith have to be to please God and to fulfill His purposes in and through our life? Have you ever wrestled with this question? Is my faith big enough? Have you ever thought, I have to have a lot of faith in this situation, but you know what? I might not have so much faith in that situation. If you're like me, I've often wondered, is my faith big enough? The size of our faith seemed to matter to the disciples. And we find in Luke 17, 5 and 6, two very short yet distinct verses nestled between many teachings and parables about the faithfulness of Jesus' followers and many miraculous faith stories of healing and provision. And the disciples seem to be overwhelmed with the power of these faith stories. And for whatever reason, it occurs to them that the size of their faith might not be enough. And as I read from Luke 17, 5 and 6, and these two short little verses, listen to what the disciples ask and listen to Jesus' response. They say, the apostles said to the Lord, "Increase our faith!" Exclamation point. And the Lord responded, "If you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it will obey you." You see, I can just envision the apostles or the disciples at the time sitting at Jesus' feet as He's teaching them. And they become passionate and excited about the possibilities that Jesus is presenting, excited about this new way of living through Jesus' power, excited about the possibilities of a wrong and backwards world being made right with a faith in Jesus. And they began to wonder, is my faith big enough? You see, these verses nestled between all that Jesus is sharing might be a crisis of belief. How are all these wonderful things possible? And they cry out, "Lord, increase our faith." Maybe they become so excited about the possibilities that they simply wanted more faith to help restore the brokenhearted, more faith to be able to heal the sick, give hope to the desperate, maybe some of both. They simply wanted more, this we know, and they didn't think but that they had enough, so they asked. Now, we don't know. What we do know is this. In the apostles' eyes and the disciples' eyes in this moment, they thought what they needed was more than what they already had. That what they had was not enough. But interestingly, Jesus didn't see it that way. An abundance of faith was not really what was needed, but rather faith itself. You see, simple and complete faith, not necessarily the amount, is what is needed. Jesus says this very small amount, the size of a mustard seed, was going to be enough, and that He can use what we give Him, and it will be enough. I think what's important in these verses is that faith is required to bring about God's power. It's not necessarily the size, because the smallest measure given, the smallest measure of faith that we give to God, that is enough for His full power to be realized in our life in whatever situation we bring before Him. The important thing is that faith itself is required. Now, in practical terms, if we are doubtful about something, if we simply have faith in its smallest measure, this will give the full power of the Holy Spirit. It does not diminish the power of the Holy Spirit. It does not diminish God's strength and grace that He can give us, to give us that momentum to move forward and accomplish all of God's possibilities that He's laid out before us. If we have faith, Jesus goes on to say this. He says, if you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, which is a teeny, teeny, tiny, if I brought it to the screen, you wouldn't even be able to see it. It's so tiny. If we had this size, the size of a mustard seed, then we could say to this mulberry tree, he says, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it would obey us. Now, a mulberry tree has a huge and tremendous deep root system, and that allows it to live for several hundred years. It would have been quite impossible to single-handedly just uproot a tree and cast it into the sea. You see, I think Jesus uses this extreme example to measure and demonstrate the huge power that even a very small faith He can use for His purposes. The faith the size of a mustard seed. Commentator William Barclay once said this. He said, faith is the greatest force in the world. It only takes the smallest bit of faith, that which looks completely impossible, to become possible. If we have a tiny bit of faith, it gives us what we need to take that one step of faith toward the possibility. God has shown me over and over that He is able to use my simple and complete faith in Him, however small the measure at times, to use that to accomplish His purposes. Whatever that faith is we have, give Him that completely, and He will be able to use it. What about you? How is your faith? What situation do you need to give over to God in this moment, having complete faith, even in the smallest measure, that His power can be manifested in and through your life and your situation? I hope you have a great faith this week and a complete faith, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.